Let us pray. Lord, Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the privilege of calling upon your name to bless this meeting, that you would be in it totally, that we would allow you to speak to us as commissioners, give us the wisdom to make the right decisions for the good people of Fannin County. Lord, there's a lot of things going on in our country with social unrest. We ask that you just be with all those things, be with the leaders, and Lord, just again, thank you for being with your people here in Fannin County. Watch over us, protect us, forgive us of our sins. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have one slight change in the agenda tonight. On item 2, we have 2 recommendations from the library board, so we'll be moving those forward for a vote. So not just 1, but 2 appointment recommendations. Item 1, unfinished business, minutes from the August 25th regular meeting and the August 28th teleconference. Commissioners, please let me know if you're ready to move forward with it.
I'm ready to move forward, Chairman. I've read the minutes.
All right.
I have no objection.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the August 25th and the August 28th teleconference. I make a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second? All in favor? Okay, we'll now open the floor for public commentary. If anyone wishes to speak, please raise your hand to be recognized. Anyone? If not, we'll move on from public commentary to new business. Okay, item number 2, we have a recommendation from the Mountain Regional Library System to fill a position, and the recommendation is for Mr. Vincent Davis to serve on the Board of the Trustees, and his term would expire on June 30th, 2021. Commissioner Patterson, do you have any thoughts?
I have no objections. I think he would be a fine addition to the board.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
I have no objections.
I'll ask for a motion that we approve Mr. Vincent Davis on the Fannin County Library Board of Trustees. I'll ask for a motion for that.
I make a motion.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second, all in favor? Okay. Second recommendation from the Library Board of Trustees is for Mrs. Katie Holloway, and this would replace Trustee Mark Toon, who had to resign from the board for moving out of the county, and this would be effective from October 15th through June 30th of 2022. Any questions or comments on Ms. Holloway, Mrs. Holloway?
I know Ms. Holloway personally, as I do Mr. Davis, and I think she would also be a fine addition to our library board.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson?
No objection.
All right. I'll ask for a recommendation for a motion that we appoint Mrs. Katie Holloway to serve on the Fannin County Library Board of Trustees. I ask for a motion.
Make the motion.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Okay, glad to have Ms. Holloway on board. Just for clarification of what happens on the library board, the Board of Commissioners makes a certain number of appointees. So do each of the municipalities, Morganton, Blue Ridge, and McCaysville. And obviously, each of the municipalities can make their own recommendations at their city hall meetings. And that totally makes up the board. Okay. All right, item 3 is signing the proclamation for the Daughters of the American Revolution. And Ms. Page, you're here. And you represent something that's very easy to support. That's the Constitution of the U.S. America. If you look at, please, if you want to tell everybody.
My name is Nancy Page, and I'm a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution of the old Untitled Chapter. And what I'm here for, along with Karen Alsop, is that we are celebrating that this week is the annual week that we celebrate the signing of the United States Constitution. So this is when our great document in our nation was set forth and put in stone for our country. That still stands strong today. So in honor of that event, and also I want to mention that last month, if you don't know, was Women's Suffrage Month, and that was the celebrating the centennial that women have only been allowed to vote in this country for 100 years, so we're dang glad to be here. So two events are actually happening somewhat simultaneously, but today it's about the Constitution, and I'm here to ask the chairman of the board here, along with I hope all of your support, to sign our proclamation for recognizing the signing of the Constitution of the United States. Sir?
Okay, I will read just a little bit of this, Ms. Page, and the proclamation states, whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law, and whereas the old Unicoi Trail Chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution is a leader in local efforts to emphasize citizens' responsibility for protecting and defending the Constitution, persevering it for posterity, to inform the people that the Constitution is the basis for America's great heritage and the foundation for our way of life, and to encourage the study of the historical events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September of 1787, and specifically, now therefore I, Stan Helton, by virtue of the authority vested in me as chair of the Fannin County Commission, State of Georgia, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week, and Thursday, September 17th as Constitution Day. And I will gladly sign this. Yes, come on up.
We'd like to get a picture with you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
You guys can come on in as well. We'd love
Sure.
to. We hope to get you all in the paper. Sorry to bust into your meeting. I'm not wearing a black shirt either. Just saying.
You want?
I'm a nurse. I can't wear black. It's very depressing.
Got this.
Do we need to bunch up?
How do you want us to do? Stand up or?
However you're comfortable.
Gentlemen, you tell us.
Behind you, that'd be okay? Is that okay, or how do you want us to do it?
I think that'd be fine.
Okay.
That's part of the distance
Do
though.
we need to hold this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's perfect. I don't have my fancy camera.
Sorry. They take great pictures. Thank you. Thank you.
Please, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We appreciate it.
Ms. Walker, you'll need to get a copy of that?
I will.
Okay. Item number 4 is a discussion of hazard pay, an issue that we've been discussing since our last meeting. And the question is if and how much to, and to what departments, what personnel should we extend hazard pay that falls within the general guidelines of the state of Georgia. And bear in mind, this has been a moving target. We've received a lot of input from the state and and through the ACCG, but it hasn't been something that has just been exact. So we're here to discuss this this evening. And Commissioner Patterson, I understand you've been digging into this quite a bit, sir. So I'll turn the floor over to you and open the discussion up.
Okay, sounds good. I have, as Mr. Helps said, been looking at it quite thoroughly and having a lot of research. It's certainly not been a spur of the moment decision. A lot of the counties, we look at other counties have already turned theirs in and looked at it, and they're all varied a little bit. Looking at it different ways, there's a lot of ways to look at this. It's not black and white. And in fact, at this point, I've not made a decision. I looked at it and got close to it. Had a lot of people say, well, we could do this, we could do that, and all of them have been helpful. But so far, the best route to take is the issue, okay? What we need to do. I've narrowed it down somewhat to some of these key points that I'll throw out right now to you. It's how I feel, which may be right or wrong. The intent, I feel like, with this, at the hazard pay, is to help with the pandemic. Related concerns, which would be more specifically related to public safety. Sheriff's Department, fire, EMS, and and see, this is where we get a separation. A lot of times we've got information here that says it might not be appropriate to add 911 in the jail. 911 being the dispatchers, and then the jail being a little different than the sheriff's department's deputies. So that's not in stone, but that's possibly looked at, and it's been looked at in other areas. These departments seem to me to be those that have been exposed the most to the risk overall. Okay? Again, that's Sheriff's Department, fire and rescue, those type of things in public safety. I think another point that I must make is I think the employees that work for Fannin County, all of the employees, are top-notch people and worthy of high recognition, and it's not just public safety. However, public safety has certainly stepped up to the plate and demonstrated extraordinary courage and resolve in battling the pandemic. I've talked to you about the 911 and jailers. We're still looking at that, and I'm anxious to hear what our chairman and Commissioner Johnson has to say about that. I've spoken to all the public safety department heads, including Sheriff Kirby, which couldn't make it tonight. We've all gotten together and kind of looked at this several different ways, how it maybe could be handled. I must say it has been a privilege to work with such high character individuals. Our department heads, every one of them. They should have and have been part of my decision-making process at this point. I would like to, at this time, turn some of my time over to the department heads and see if they have any final comments that we could have, that could make, points with this area. Any comments?
As far as 911's concerned, I feel like they've been very devoted during this whole entire time, and it would be only fair to include them, with law enforcement and then fire and rescue. They've had an increased stress level, dealing with the incoming calls, trying to determine if they are COVID related or not, and relaying that information on to the responder. I feel like they would deserve it as well.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Patrick. I've heard that before, that the stress level, and also they've got certain requirements they've got to have for contact tracing and things that they have to do here and there, and their call level has been increased tremendously right at this point.
That's correct.
So the stress level and anxiety of their job has been increased as well.
Correct.
I appreciate that. Anything else?
That's all I've got for 911.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to say that I think all of our departments have done an excellent job during this COVID-19 pandemic. We've been able to really control within our own departments the number of people that have been exposed and contracted it. I'd also like to add a little bit to what Patrick said about 911. Not only are they taking calls and their stress levels up, but we depend on them. We get a report from the state every day. It's a confidential report that gives addresses of where patients that are tested positive are residing. And our EMS, our fire, our law enforcement all depend on 911 dispatchers to check that list and make sure that we're notified before we get on the scene of a call if that address happens to be a positive, someone that has tested positive. So we can assure that we are wearing proper PPE, take extra precautions and things like that. So they do have a very important job in this battle.
Kind of like the brain trust.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
Information system.
That's
Center.
correct. Every call begins and ends with them, pretty much. Also, I would like to say that, of course, I think it goes without saying that our frontline firefighters and our EMS personnel are dealing with this on a daily basis. We are carrying COVID positive patients every day, and I don't want to make it sound like that there's some kind of a we don't want to be around that stuff. Our crews have stepped up. They've done what they need to do. They've gotten the job done, even though they're putting their own health and their families at risk by doing so. So I think it's a no-brainer that they should get it. But I'd also like to say that we're kind of unique in North Georgia area as a small department. Our
our people that, you know, some of our administrative staff, they are running it every day also. And I'm not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for my fire chief and my EMS deputy director, and then Patrick, even though he's our 911 coordinator, he runs most of the calls in the county with the fire and EMS, especially fire calls. Anytime there's a car wreck, he's usually on the scene. Larry, as y'all know, he's out day and night running calls with our EMS and 911. And I'd like y'all to really consider the possibility of including them on it. But that's pretty much what I've got.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? You got anything to say? I got a question for you, Larry. We got in our handouts, you know, folks, when we deal with this thing, we've got like 3 different types of employees. Okay, we got our full-timers, of course. We got our, and even really more than that, full-time, we got part-time, and we got volunteers. I got a handout about volunteers here for firefighters. Do you give them all? And then we got department heads, and then we got elected officials. So really, I got a bunch of things to sort out. Larry, do you want to say anything about this volunteer firefighters? I know you brought something up here.
I did, yeah, at the last meeting. But as far as that goes, I know I've talked to some of the other counties as well as Darrell and Robert. And as far as being able to figure them into that list of volunteers actually go from one volunteer answering 1 call, and then the highest volunteer answering up to 30 calls in that time spread that we were given from March 30th until now.
And you've got 2 that's answered 25 calls?
Yes, sir.
And you wanted them $10 per call?
Well, I mean, that was on the table to be decided on.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that up and looked at it, wanted to see. Okay, anything else? Anybody? All right, that's it. Sheriff Kirby's not here. Does anybody in the sheriff's department want to say anything, or any department? You want to say anything?
I'm just here basically to listen.
Okay.
You know, we're considered on the front line too. We're an essential in my office, and we didn't have anything protecting us through March up through July. And sheriff's office, UBI, anybody, state patrol can't get a warrant or a citation. We got to do first appearances. So I feel that my staff should be included because they're on the front line also. Because we're essential, had to be here and we never shut down. We run full-time office. We're as much contact with the bailiffs, and the bailiffs downstairs should get it. I think the frontline personnel, Mark and them, meet everybody coming in the door, and they should be included. They're in our courtrooms just like everybody else, and we're still open and running court. And all I think is there's a lot more to be included. And I'm all for the law enforcement ought to be frontline, and the EMS, absolutely give it to them before you even consider us. But I think there's some consideration to the court system also, and its workers as the frontline workers downstairs.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Or Judge. In conclusion with me, like I said, I haven't made a total decision yet. I know it was brought up by our chairman, Mr. Helton here, and I am anxious to kind of get their input, and we can hash out some things and hopefully make a decision tonight. So I will defer the rest of my time. Commissioner Helton, back to you, and Commissioner Johnson.
Commissioner Johnson, do you have any comments on this, sir? You have the floor.
Well, I think first we need to figure out what's legal for us to pay this cost. I think first and foremost, you know, this all started as first responders, if I'm not mistaken. So
We know, sir, at this point in time, education says that we know that your people under the department of these black shirts over here, EMS, anything's under the EMS umbrella should qualify. classify volunteers and what you pay them, because they're volunteers and they make so much a call, so. But I think they're otherwise qualified, it's just how, what, if anything, you pay them.
So EMS,
Yeah.
did y'all come to a conclusion in your meeting about who, because I don't think I could be at liberty to say, and I'm just putting a pause right there. Go ahead, so you're saying the EMS, fire, 911 would be eligible. So back to the volunteers, so out of y'all's meeting, what did y'all come up with the volunteers? Yay, nay? Because it's not, I don't think it should be up to us to decide that. I think it should be up to the department head, which would be the fire chief. Or you, Mr. Graham. See, I think this ball's still kind of bouncing in circles, just like it did the night it got brought up. And this is why, in my opinion, it should have been brought up. But since it's been brought up, that ball's still bouncing, and I'm not going to make the final say of who or what's going to get what when they don't work for me every day. So I would like to feel very comfortable with the recommendations from you, your people, or if you feel like you need it as well. You know, those are things I feel like we need to hear for a decision to be made after we figure out who's legal. So we've got fire, EMS, 911, sheriff's department.
Sheriff's Department. Which is higher, EMS or EMA? Who's over who?
They're all under the-
EMA's,
EMA.
everything comes under EMA.
Okay,
Correct.
sir,
Our-
everything that comes under EMA, because I said that backwards. I thought EMS was the highest. But if EMA is the highest, then it's whatever falls under that umbrella.
Okay, so we got them, sheriff's department. And the only reason I'm asking this is because of some emails that I got a copy of here. It was asked of Union County what they done. And, they've got all the amounts here and, but I noticed a glaring thing at the bottom, the county, they gave everyone in the road department and the jail part of the, hazard pay, but it says that the county is going to be absorbing the cost for that because they are not reimbursable. But the county felt that it was well-deserved regardless. So what does Union County know that we don't, if they know that that part is not reimbursable?
I haven't seen what you're looking at, so I have no idea. I've just been handed.
Because what I'm afraid of is giving a bunch of money away that's not reimbursable, when we find out in 6 months, when I'm not here, that I've caused problems for a future, and I'm not interested in it. Before I cause problems for a future board, I'd rather just say nobody can. Because that's what it's turning into, is once one person gets, just like the first night it was brought up, I said it's gonna be a can of worms, you're not gonna put it back in the can, and that's essentially what it's turned into.
I'm going to tell you, I don't know how, I don't know why they would have made the decision. I can see why a road department would be. I don't know how you could say that your jail was not, but maybe they operate their jail differently. I mean, we have jailers, but we have deputies, but everybody comes and goes through one central place. So maybe if they were separated, possibly, but from our structure, we have one sheriff's department.
Right.
And so if one was going to qualify, I think they would all qualify. And that would include the people that are going out and serving the warrants and the people that are going and doing the arresting. Because they're all coming in equally possible.
Commissioner Johnson, here on the handout that we just got, it says that 911 jail detention center staff, which is jail, are not eligible unless their time was substantially dedicated to co-bed activities. That's page 17 of this handout we got with the ACCG. But in Union County, as you stated, they said, and I have to tend to agree that they were well deserving, and they are taking it out of their general fund, I think, compensating them not as much as the others, but to some extent.
Didn't they change that?
That's on page 17.
Mr. Patterson, I think they may have come back and updated that.
Did they? Okay.
And
Well,
I'm
it-
telling you, it's a moving it's a moving target.
Right. Well, it does say, it does give a little disclaimer there, unless their time was substantially dedicated to covert activities. So if their time was dedicated, which I know the jailers, they have to fingerprint, get right close
Yeah,
and personal,
everybody-
and those type of things. As far as what Patrick just argued about the 911, with the stress and all the things that they have to do extra, there are arguments for both of those departments.
Well, I know like our 911 dispatchers, because I was informed that this information would be made available to us. So now you have a dispatcher that is charged with making sure that everybody, all of their coworkers know that they're going into a true hotspot. Being a 911 dispatcher could never be an easy job. It has certainly had to be a much harder job during this period of time. Like I said, the way our jail is set up, if one deputy picks somebody up, somebody else is gonna fingerprint them. I truly don't know how they tested them, but somebody had to get in their face and test them.
So how do you feel, if this thing keeps on moving around, do you think it's wise for us to give any hazard pay right now, that we figure out who qualifies and who doesn't?
Have they given us a deadline by which we have to spend this money?
No.
Okay. Then,
Just to be clear with everyone, you said how you feel, here's how I feel. I feel that anyone who doesn't have a choice, and this is just the Earl feeling, so I'm not speaking for anyone else here. If my house gets robbed, if I have a heart attack, if I cut my leg off with my bush hog, whatever, those people who don't have a choice but to tend to me, or if I decide to rob the store across the street, and then I have to come to the jail, someone has to book me, somebody has to fingerprint me, the people who don't have a choice to come in contact with, that's what I consider a first responder. Someone who doesn't, they don't have a choice. They don't get to sit behind a plexiglass screen. They can't say, you stand over there on that side of the room. When you go and you show up on a scene or you're doing your job, you really don't have a choice. That's what I consider who should be eligible for this money. That's my opinion, and I thought that's where we were going when this first, came about. First responders meant first responders, but at this time, hearing your thoughts on it, we really don't have a clear guideline as to what is or is not allowable for us to pay or not to pay. Because see, when you go to the significant overtime, when the COVID first started, I can remember we didn't run any calls, not very many at all. So see, we don't want to give hazard pay and it not meet this criteria, because then we're going to wind up in the future having to go back and causing grief on them. Well, at what point did the call volume start back up? Because I've read the arrest reports. There's very few people getting arrested. There's very few people. Over this whole deal, I don't know what the difference is. Maybe we don't want them in our courtrooms. I don't know. But it just seems like a lot of these, I don't want to do it with criteria like this that you just mentioned, about the overtime. If COVID has caused a lot of extra work, how long would you guys think that, you remember the dead era? It was like very few calls, everyone was scared to death. How long was that era?
Yeah, down March through May, started picking back up in May.
So see, with this criteria that's listed here, I would hate to pay that money out and then cause you grief here, and if we ever were audited or whatever by the money we spent, and it turned into, well, actually your call volume went down if they look at it. I'm just trying to look at it from that side of the token. I don't want to cause troubles in the future. Anything legal that I believe that we can compensate people, I think we should compensate them for. I'm not saying I'm against compensation. But what I'm saying is, till we get a clearer picture over who qualifies for this money and it not cause problems 6 months, 10 months down the road, I don't think we need to pay anything. That's my opinion. Until we figure out who is eligible and who's not, for compensation. Because as is said here, it's not clear.
It is like, you know, the education side of it. It
Are
is-
teachers getting any hazard pay or
No.
janitors?
The teachers weren't considered critical until the end of this past month, August 31st. Although tattoo artists and bowling alley operators were considered critical, teachers were not considered critical infrastructures on August 18th. So they didn't even qualify because they weren't critical infrastructure, stupid as that is. And I just use that as an example or to underline what you just said. The rules are the rules except when they've changed the rules. And that's what we've been dealing with basically since the 13th day of March. I can do this, I can start tomorrow and survey of the other counties. I mean,
There's gotta be a string list somewhere when we get this money. There's a bunch of things you can do and you cannot do this money. We didn't just get handed that money. Do you agree, do the two of you agree that we didn't get handed that money and there not be some sort of something attached at some point?
Well,
Whether it be a future audit or what?
the way this evolved, just to go back, we were notified back in June when the COVID CARES Act money went from the federal government to the state. Initially, they were given the lion's share of that 4 counties around Atlanta that had a population of 500,000 or greater. And the local municipalities of smaller counties, cities, weren't getting anything at that time. Then it changed where the state said they would give approximately 40% of that $4.1 billion from the Fed out to the smaller municipalities. And that was dictated on what your population was. Our population is very close to Union County, so the numbers were very close. We're a little less population than Gilmer, so they were to receive a little more. But what was utterly confusing is initially, and the ACCG was confused, every county in the state was trying to cipher through this, but what the basic understanding was at that time, that if you don't spend a chunk of that money by September 1st, you lose it. And that certainly put us under the gun about, at the time we were, that's a terrible position to be in, to think about spending 30% of that 1.2 million plus within that quick time frame, which is how the hazard thing initiated. But during that time, and up until just a few weeks ago, we were under the understanding that we were under a definite deadline to get the first 30% by September 1st. Now, during this whole time, from the first notification back in June to now, there have been hundreds, I mean hundreds of emails that have come through from ACCG, very little from the state direct, but trying to decipher through this. And I don't know that anybody is 100% certain about it, but what the most recent clarification on this, when we were under the gun about, we got to hurry up and spend this money by September 1st, and we don't know what the deadline is for the rest of it, then all of a sudden it was clarified greater to us that basically the state said what you can do to qualify for that money. Your county has this much money available, and the way that you're going to prove that you have that money coming to you is what were the salaries of the front line, law enforcement, EMS, EMA, fire, what was the salaries of those groups back to March 1st? If it met or exceeded that 1.2 million, then you were fine. So we have been approved. In fact, Friday night, we got the final approval on the last 70% of the money. There's no deadline on this other than the commitments we've already made for Robert's group and a few other small things. Well, the cleaning of the courthouse was not small, but that certainly is covered under it. So where we're going to be at right now, to get back to your point, everything that I've seen says since we used the frontline employees, and that was 35 full-time EMS, fire, rescue, and the 17 uniformed patrol officers, there's 52, that if you have any hazard pay that goes strictly within those groups, it's about as safe of a decision as you could make if you do it now. But the fact that until I hear otherwise, we're not under any deadline to do that. And to your point about us making a decision that could impact the incoming administration, where they've got to scramble to prove it, that's kind of a big deal. I know, I honestly feel that at this point, since we're in process of getting that money and putting it in the bank, it's there. It'll go into the general fund. And if we decide to just let the new incoming administration have another 4 months to, if they want to do it, if they don't want to do it, let them really dig into it. Certainly, we still don't have everything picture perfect from the state. And like you said, and that's a very good point. If we make a decision now to give out hazard pay to folks, and then the state comes back, as they have shown locally, if you don't follow the guidelines with what they issue money, they're going to make you pay it back. We've seen that with one of our municipalities. I don't want to put a new administration in that position. So, you know, I'm kind of right now at this point, if you gentlemen felt strongly about moving forward with hazard pay within this limited group, which is going to make other folks mad, I could probably go along with just that as a maximum. Or if you feel like that we've hashed this out as much as we can, and this close to a new administration, if we need to just leave that money there and let them decide what they want to do, I'm good with that too. So.
Well, I think it's just wise before our attorney can figure out what we can spend it on. And be clear of that before we take a vote and say, this is what we feel. And we all sit up there and raise our hand. I just don't think it's very wise till we figure out who is truly eligible and who is truly not eligible for us to do anything. Until we can clarify that. I mean, if I feel like if we move forward right now, and the county attorney's already said, you know, it's everywhere right now, I think we'd be not responsible to move forward.
Okay.
Until someone says you can do it for this, this, and this.
I will undertake to ascertain what the consensus is statewide and send that to you. I will not be here at the next meeting. I could call in, but I will make sure you have it in paper before the next meeting.
Because does anyone know, like Union County has done this, they've chosen to do this, but they're under the impression they're gonna have to absorb the amount of their 911 and their jail. And they decided to give the road department as well, so they're having to absorb all that.
Yeah.
But I would like to know not just what other counties are doing, but just what there's some guidelines somewhere.
There's a whole lot of people that are looking at the same murky crystal ball. And I mean, who is auditing when they audit what their standards for audit are? Those haven't even been developed.
So being that you feel that way, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with any of it
A lot of moving parts, man. Let me correct, I think Patrick can help me with this. I don't think Union County has a 911, do they?
They do, yes.
Do they? Okay, I didn't see that, what they had.
They have some, who is it? Part of their employees that are y'all fall under their hospital, don't they?
Paramedics.
Yeah, their EMS
Okay.
falls under their hospital, but Union County owns its hospital.
Okay.
So I don't even know how they do that, how, pay-wise.
Well, does anyone want to make a motion that we table this indefinitely?
Let me ask a question, just to throw this out here. Would it be possible later on, since it's some uncertainty that Commissioner Johnson had spoken to and Chairman Helton, could we do maybe a needs analysis list of possible items that they would need for future pandemic work, like shields or whatever? And would that be something that would fit into that? 911, not just the EMA and the EMS, but also the sheriff's department, a needs analysis type thing that they could maybe buy supplies for this pandemic, or do we need them? Or I was just wondering, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I'll give you my response. I feel like the intent of this money is to keep counties whole about unbudgeted items due to COVID. I feel that was the intent of this, and we really don't know what's going to happen between now and the end of the year. Hopefully, good Lord willing, things will get better with this. Get a vaccine, maybe next year will be better. But I feel like if we're under no deadline from the state to spend this, now if they come back and say you got to spend it at the end of the year, that changes the little ball game again. But as long as, this is just me speaking, if we're not under any gun, any deadline to spend this money, we don't know what's going to happen with our economy. We're doing well right now. Our tourism business is. The folks that are paying property taxes, the citizens of the county, if any of them long term, we don't know. There's a lot of unknown, a lot of pain out there for these folks. And I kind of feel like we're prudent to not be in a hurry to spend all this money if we don't have to. And that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
I wonder, what has made everyone feel so comfortable with it would be correct to spend this money on hazard pay? I mean, all these talks, I mean, like in the meeting, you know, y'all spoke about. I mean, where is all the information coming from? I mean, I guess I'm looking for that piece of paper that says this, this, and this. I'm not so.
I can copy on those emails because it's going to be hundreds of bloody. I mean, it's unreal. And trying to cipher through all that is.
But like someone's telling Union County that the road and jail are not reimbursable.
Well, that was what we read right here.
That's what I'm saying.
Which somebody said, I think, Ms. Dahl said that they've been already updated, and that might not be true. Is that correct, Ms. Dahl?
See, I thought the jail was included, but I'm gonna go back, like the chairman said,
This has said,
hundreds of emails.
this is from August the 6th. So
Yeah.
it's been a while, a month.
In a
You could be
COVID
right.
regulation world, that's years.
Yeah.
I think we're probably, you know, I'd prefer not to just follow what another county's doing. I'd rather us be sure that we know what we're doing.
It's very varied, different ones, and we know that Gilmer has not done anything yet as well. So, I understand that train of thought.
Until I get any more information on it, I don't feel comfortable making that decision on it until we, you know, because, I mean, do any of you have any different thoughts or feelings on what the money is supposed to be allocated for?
Y'all get the information, we don't.
Somebody kind of got to have a handle on who they think and what they think is eligible, or we wouldn't be sitting here right now. So I think it's way too premature. When you find out more information, Ms. Dawes, I think we need to, whenever we find that information out, that's when the money and the compensation needs to be done. Because I kept hoping to come in here tonight and somebody show me, you know, this is what allows us to do this here, rather than a bunch of other counties, you know, doing it. Because, I mean, it's how different Fannin and Union is. You know, Union having to raise their taxes 17%, and we're not. So just because they are doesn't mean we have to either. So I want to get some guidance from whoever's behind with the strings. And if those strings say you can spend that on hazard pay for this, this, and this, I'd be perfectly satisfied and would move forward with a decision. But till we get that information, I don't think there's.
I'm okay with that, as long as, like Commissioner Elton said, we don't miss any deadlines, and they haven't given anything yet, so we've got time.
You want to make a motion, Commissioner Patterson?
I make a motion to table it until we find out more information and, about what, Commissioner Johnson said, the ins and outs, the details of the funding process.
So make a motion to table this indefinitely until further clarification, is that?
Further clarification, or we know the deadline.
Okay, all right. Okay. Got a motion on the table. I'll second that motion. We have any further discussion? All right, I ask for a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All right, gentlemen, do we need executive session?
I do not.
Okay, neither do I, Commissioner Johnson. All right, I'm going to ask for a motion for adjournment.
Thank you.
Second, all in favor?
Second.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.